Our protagonist was a normal office worker who always worked 78 hours a week, but suddenly he is reincarnated. In a fantasy world. Usually, reincarnation is a good thing, and for our protagonist it was also a good thing. However, he was reincarnated in the body of a nobleman, who is a complete illiterate. To make matters worse, he doesn't have any special abilities either. However, he enjoys a delicious meal, and spends a good time bathing, because he has maids who take care of him. He is considered the son of a count, who does nothing but eat and play all day. He's having such a good time, that he doesn't even bother to ask the name of the world he's in. While the maids are bathing him, they tell him to go to bed early because his brothers will be back the next day. Our protagonist gets confused when the maid says this, and the maids think he is joking. They tell him that his brothers are Leo Antonio from the Palacio family. The moment he heard the Palace family, he realized that he sounded quite familiar. The moment it clicks in his brain, he sticks his head in the water frustrated because he has somehow found himself in psychedelia. In her past life, there was one game that she managed to find time to play, and this game was psychedelia. It was a turn-based role-playing game in which, no matter which route the player took, the moment the 5 great sins appeared, the kingdom, the nobles, the cities and everything came crashing down. The 5 great sins, which is what everyone knows, are greed, anger, laziness, pride and obsession. These 5 destroyed everything, and among the destroyed houses is the county of Palacio. The eldest son of the house is Leo, and he is known as the king of prostitution, while the second son, Tonio, is known as the king of drugs. The family was a bunch of trash nobles who appeared on a side quest before the main story started. Our protagonist cannot believe that he found himself in the first place that was crushed by the 5 great sins. In addition to things not going so well for him, he is reincarnated as the 3rd son of Palacio County, a mafia villain, Elin Palacio. Elin lies on his bed staring in horror, while also praying that he will be sent back to his old trash life, because most likely it will be better than the fate he is about to suffer. With tears in her eyes, she wonders about the purpose of a life that would be taken away from her in 10 years. In fact, he thinks he feels worse than if his salary was withheld for 6 whole months. He wonders why, as a reincarnated person, he does not even get a single advantage to help save his life. Suddenly, he realizes that he has an advantage at his disposal, and this is to know about the content of the game. That takes place 10 years in the future. For him, this is basically the same as knowing the future as well. Since he already knows this, he believes that he can get rid of the cause of the destruction before it even happens. With this in mind, he decides to try to rehabilitate the 5 great sins for the sake of a noble and peaceful life. They are just children as they are, so he thinks it should still be possible. 2 months after he decided on this, he received his personal gentleman, Jivan, in his office. Jivan informs him that he has managed to rescue orphans and place them in an orphanage to which he directed him, and among them was a girl named Yusha. Alan is pleased to hear this news, and this only confirms his suspicion that Jivan is really capable. Jivan is confused about whether he is getting a compliment or not, because it's hard to tell with his expressionless face. Alan agrees with him, and tries to let out a desperate smile, but this only makes him look even worse. This is quite difficult for him, since his original face was quite expressive. But it seems that his emotions are not shown on his current face. However, Jevin thanks him in the compliment. Apparently, betrayal is rampant in the game, but Jevin is a rare top-tier support character who does not betray his master. The moment Alan found him, he hired him without hesitation. Jevin then confirms from Alan that the raid was to rescue Yusha, and he says yes. Jevin finally understands why Alan is interested in Yusha, because even he, who has been a mercenary for many years. Yusha is not an ordinary girl. Basically, she was quite strong, which left Jevin wondering why she would allow herself to be captured easily. Alan then asks Jevin why he didn't bring the girl to the farm, as it would be easier. Alan praises Jevin for the observation, and although it seems that she is letting her power go to waste, leaving her at the orphanage is part of Alan's plan. Yusha Bludia is a member of the grotesque blood tribe who wields the power of a contract with an indescribable being from another dimension. Yusha then grew to become the sin of anger among the 5 great sins. She was given a title that made her look like a monster who deserved nothing but death. He was a monster that caused hundreds of deaths, but if he manages to grow up in peace, he will not participate in the destruction. For Elin, he has managed to eliminate the first landmine, and since he cannot give his true reason, he decides to give Jevon a false reason to leave Yudi there. Elin comes up with a stupid reason, and Jevon believes him. Elin mentions that it's not the right time yet, and tells Jevon to make sure no one else knows what they're doing. He also orders Jevon to provide everything the orphanage needs for them. Alan then passes a letter to Jevon, telling him to give it to Yusha. Levin asks if the letter is important, and Alan says it's a letter to help Yusha get settled. Alan thinks the letter would be great to calm her down, since she went through a harsh human experiment. Yvonne is impressed that her master has even written a letter, and promised to deliver it safely. Although he doesn't know if the letter will calm Yusha down, Alan thinks he has to try first. Apparently, he mixed the real message inside the jokes he wrote in the letter. This was something he heard dozens of times while replaying the game. It was a reassuring message from the Archbishop, who helps with the sin of anger. However, this message came too late in the game, but Ellen believes that sending Yudi to the message early should help put her in the right direction. Ellen can't believe she's trying to befriend a monster. But because they worship an otherworldly being, he thinks it should work. When Yusha receives the letter, she takes a moment to read it. And at that moment, Jevon can feel the immense magical power emanating from his body, which is quite absurd. Basically, she is a strange girl, completely devoid of emotions. Yusha then asks Jevon if Alon was really the one who sent the letter, and with fear coursing through his body, Jevon says yes. Yusha lets out a really scary aura before asking Jevon why Alon himself didn't show up. Jevon cannot believe that the girl is already at the maximum level at her age, so sister can be visualized. Jevon then tells Yusha that Alon said it's not the right time yet. After hearing this, Yusha finally calms down, and this is also thanks to the hidden message that Alon put in the letter. Yusha knows that it is something that only someone worthy of being her master can know. With a cheerful face and an overwhelming aura, he mentions that he finally understands his master's will. Meanwhile, Elin, in his bed, is thinking about how he can make sure that the next person on the list will help him increase his seemingly short life. Shortly after, Elin is in the library trying to get clues about the third sin when Jevon rushes in to tell him that he has managed to rescue the second sin he mentioned. Even though he looks completely exhausted, Alon asks Yvonne if she treated the child well. Yvonne assures him that she did everything he asked after rescuing the child from the illegal slave market. Suddenly, Alan's trash older brother Tonio comes into the room and wastes no time using Alon as his foot mat. He expresses his surprise that someone as boring as Alon has decided to read books in the library. Alon stays silent, but this angers Tonjo, and he yells at Alon, telling him to answer when his elders speak to him. Alon can't believe that the former owner of the body managed to survive so long, because Tonjo is always looking for a fight. Alon would have preferred to fight back, but he knows it's better not to. He quickly bows his head like a slave, telling Tonjo that he would just like to absent himself from the library since his older brother wants to use it. Tonjo laughs at Ellen, saying that he has finally met his place. Suddenly, a knife comes flying towards them and grazes Tonjo's head. It turns out that the knife came directly from the eldest son, Leo. Leo talks about how he doesn't want any scandal early in the morning. The tension between the two immediately hardens when they start threatening to kill each other. Elon gently pulls away from the two as he doesn't want anything from their fight. The family was nothing more than a minor character that was eliminated very soon, and although they are a powerful family, the two trash brothers were always locked in a fierce battle for who would become the head of the family. One is known as the king of meat, while the other is the king of drugs. Basically, the two are the kings of the underworld, and no one who wants to live a good life will dare to mess with them. Alon manages to crawl out of the room, while the two are turning everything over. Alon realizes that the best thing for him is to live like an incompetent scumbag if he ever wants to live a long time. Alon returns to his room and sits down on his couch to rest. On the other hand, Yvonne wonders how a person as incompetent as Alon is able to discover experiments with humans. Alon is someone who seems really fragile, who can't even take care of himself, but for some reason, he knows about secret foreign affairs. However, he considers Alon a really peculiar person. The last child he rescued is considered really dangerous, with powers that are considered to end the world. Basically, he was rescued in the kingdom of Kalyan, where there was an illegal slave market. With this, Halon has been able to redeem the second sin, Deus. After Deus was sold as a slave, he was abused and passed from hand to hand endlessly. Because of this, it ended up becoming the sin of laziness, which is among the 5 great sins. After Deus lost him, he razed kingdoms to the ground, in the most horrible way that one wouldn't even think is possible. Even most of the players were traumatized by how cruel Deus was in exterminating his enemies. Because of how dangerous he was, Alon told Soap to treat him gently. Javon then asks Alon if the letter he sent to Yusha is about the second son, and Alon confirms this. In addition to the important message in the recent letter, he also added some extra important information. Alon had told Yusha to take care of the child because he was fragile. And just as her master ordered, Yusha did the right thing. She approaches Deus to help him out of his desperate mental situation, while telling him that he has been chosen by a great person. Yusha told Deus that he would get his revenge against those who wronged him if he could serve Alan with the utmost loyalty. With Yusha's help, Deus can release his power, but also keep it under control. Elin, on the other hand, is panicking because he doesn't know where the third boss is. Suddenly, Jevon enters the room to tell Elin that the second son, Tonio, is dead. This genuinely shocks Elin because Tonjo shouldn't be dead yet. Before long, a funeral is arranged for Tonjo, and even in the living room, his father is seen having fun with girls, as if he doesn't mind that his son just died. On the other hand, Elin finds it really suspicious that Tonjo died from an accidental fall, because it didn't happen that way in the game. In the game, Leo struggled before he could finally kill Tonjo. However, things are different because Alan can clearly see Leo laughing at Tonjo's corpse. However, Alan believes that all he needs to do is make sure to gather the 5 big sins. A year later, everything in the house seems to be more stable than ever, since there are no grounds for succession. And Leo has also taken over his brother's drug business. During that year, Elon basically became pen pals with Julia. They are always sending letters to each other. And because of how well everything is going, the orphanage continues to receive a long list of donations. Javon then tells Ellen that he has found a clue regarding what he is looking for. Ellen is pleased to hear this because it basically means an old record about the third boss. Ellen is pleased that he has finally found the third boss. For Ellen, it's a peaceful night, but the same can't be said at a certain drug distribution site. 2 high-ranking officers under Leo's command arrive at the warehouse to find dozens of its members soaked in their own pool of blood. Those who are still alive begin to commit suicide, as if they have lost control of their bodies. They stick knives in their throats in the most horrible ways. The 2 officers soon find themselves sharing the same fate as their counterparts as well. It turns out that the person behind this is Deus, and he is being supervised by Yusha. After they finish exterminating the bad guys, Deus asks Yusha if her actions even mean anything, and Yusha assures him that they do. Yusha asks Deus if he feels sorry for the bad guys, but he says no, since they are the ones who make people use substances. He's just curious to know what it means for his revenge plan. Yutia then assures him to lay the groundwork for his master's return. And since he is coming, they cannot allow his throne to be in disorder. Deus finally understands everything that Julia has been preaching to him. And before they leave the scene, they make sure the warehouse is completely destroyed. They leave a blue moon sign on the grounds of the scene, as they consider themselves the blue moon, which is Al's sword. A year later, everything seems to be going well, as Jevon comes to inform him that he has also managed to save the 5th child. The 5th one has also been sent to the orphanage, and Alon can't contain his joy that he managed to overcome his biggest worry. Because of his hard work, Alon doesn't mind feeding Yvonne the best treats he can get. Finding the 3rd sin, greed, was the most difficult, but they were able to achieve it thanks to their player knowledge. Jivan did his best to make sure that everything turned out fine in the end. Alon then tells Jivan that he is free to rest for a while because he has been running for quite some time. Jivan asks him if the orphanage's mission is finished, and he says yes. Jivan is relieved to hear this, and asks Alan if he's not happy because it doesn't look like he is. Of course, Alan assures him that he is. In fact, he claims that he is currently smiling, although his face says otherwise. Jivan has no choice but to stick with what Alan claimed. Elin lies down on the floor with the relief that everything is going as he wants. Because the children only became evil thanks to their evil past, he made it his mission to rescue them all, and they did not think. He thought that he would be able to achieve it sooner. Alan then asks Javan about the state of the orphanage, and Javan presents him with a letter. Javan assures him that everything is going smoothly as expected. Apparently, at first the children were like broken dolls, but somehow they have managed to cheer up. Alan is relieved to hear this, as there will be no reason for them to hire caregivers. Alan is proud of Yusha because he didn't expect her to be able to handle the pressure of taking care of the children. Alan suspects that it is easy for her due to her home configuration, which is linked to the orphanage. Alan then tells Jevin that, with everything he has seen, Yusha is a good girl. By the letter he sent, he assures Alan that he has nothing to worry about, because everything has been resolved. Alan mentions how proud he is to see the children grow up properly. Since all 5 are growing up very well, Elin concludes that the environment also plays a very important role. Jevin then asks Elin when he plans to meet the kids, as he said there would be a time for it. Deep down, Elin has no intention of meeting the children in person. He knows it would be nice to meet them in person so they can get closer, but he is terrified by the personalities he has seen while playing. However, he thinks he should be fine since he rescued them before their awakening. Alan then lies to Yvonne, telling her that he might try to meet the children later in the future. Now that he has achieved the rescue, Alan believes the next thing on his list is to learn some self-defense skills. Since magic requires talent, Alan has just what it takes to learn it. Jivan then asks Alan if he has heard about the Blue Moon. Elon answers that no. Ejiban explains that they are a group that has gained popularity recently by hunting down criminal organizations. Since it sounds like cleaning trash, Elon sees no reason why it should be a problem. Since the Blue Moon is not part of the story of the game that Elon knows, he believes that it will disappear in a short time. Jevin then drops the bomb, saying that the group has killed nobles, so he believed that Elon might know them. Hearing this, Elon tells Jevin to start sleeping in the room near his. Meanwhile, Blue Moon leader Jusha is asking her members about the week's report. Cholong, the Sin of Pride, reports that he has taken care of the heads of slave traders. Before eliminating them, she promised to let them live if they could guess the color of their eyes, but for obvious reasons, they couldn't, which eventually led her to kill them all. The Sin of Greed, Rhine, then mentions that all the bodies were buried cleanly. And for the illegal experiments, Raiden, the Sin of Obsession, has taken care of all of them. Yusha is glad to hear this, as everything seems to be going just the way she wants. He praises them all, saying that they all exist for the glory of the Blue Moon. Just then, Raiden mentions that there is a small problem. The head of Abelin, the organization they are targeting, is being ruled by Leo, the Count's eldest son. Apparently, Rodin discovered a dangerous document when they were eliminating Avalon's base in the south. Basically, Leo is planning to break up with Elin after his father dies. When Yusha sees this, rage takes over her. 2 years later, Count Palacio, who has been ill, dies. The official report mentions that he died of a cardiac arrest, but given his history of abuse, drug use, it's obvious what killed him. During the funeral arrangements, Leo learns that the Blue Moon has hit his business once again. Elon overhears his brother and his men talking about Blue Moon and realizes that they have finally started to take the organization seriously. Momentarily, the Count's funeral with 0 mourners ended very quietly. After the funeral, Javan asks Ellen what his next plan is. Javan reminds him that by next year, Leo will inherit the title. Surprisingly, Ellen tells Javan that they are leaving the estate. This surprises Javan, and Ellen mentions that they are going south to a remote village called Rodmich. This is a remote village on the southern territory of Palacio County. Wasting no time, Alon and Yvonne left the mansion and had fun in Rodmich until were forced to return to the mansion. Only 3 days later, something shocking and surprising has happened, and this is the death of the eldest son, Leo. Elon can't believe he's already back at the estate in just 3 days. Elon wonders why the eldest son is dead just 3 days after he left. The cause of his death was a stab wound to the heart. However, the question of who killed him remains unanswered. Later, Elon asks Jivan if he found anything unusual, and he says yes. Just then, Jivan asks Elon if it was he who eliminated Avalon in one night. This question surprises Ellen, and he finally realizes why the other nobles and guests present are afraid to look him in the eyes. The day Alan was going to Rodmich, Jivan asked Alan why he wasn't going to a city instead of a remote village. Deep down, Alan knows that the only place where he can finalize his plan is in Rodmich. That's why he's heading there. Since he has saved the 5 great sins and prevented the world from being destroyed, he believes that Rodmich is the right choice, as he has no connection to the original story. In addition, he even has a villa palatial there. This is a separate house built apart from the main family residence. It is basically the perfect place to live quietly like a noble. The only answer he gives to Javon is that there is a reason for everything. Javon is tired of hearing this as he tells Elin that he is always putting things aside. But since he can't get the words out of his mouth, he just decides to leave it at that. It turns out that Leo was already planning to kill him. But since he is already leaving on his own, he decides to postpone it. Elin even bows to him, as if she was afraid before leaving, and all this convinces Leo to let Elin go. However, he decides to tell his assistant, Alman, that he is following Alan's carriage. Alman then asks Leo if he wants to kill Alon by asking him to follow the carriage. Alman wants to confirm if he really wants to kill Alon. Leo is surprised to hear this because Alman has always been the one who follows any order without a word of complaint. Leo is surprised that Alman is asking questions. Leo yells at Alman, telling him that his only job is to follow orders, but Alman suddenly thrusts his sword into his chest. Leo is stunned, which leads him to ask Alman why he betrayed him. Alman smiles, telling Leo that he likes to play. Alman mentions that he has been playing all this time, and it turns out that it is not really Alman, but Raiden, the sin of obsession. Raiden tells Leo before finishing with that no one touches his master, the Big Moon. He mentions that they might have restrictions on carrying out missions, but when it comes to his master's safety, there is no doubt about it. Ratten reveals that he intentionally waited for him to say he wanted to hurt Elin before finally making his move to get him off the board. Mouse says she has been waiting for 2 years only for him to make the wrong move. While he is bleeding to death, Leo tells Raton that he will not be able to escape from his men. Raiden then replies that he just made Avalon's extinction his main purpose with what he just said. Raiden shakes his head for Leo, saying that the Big Moon, Alon, really gave him a chance to live, but he ruined it. As usual, Alon woke up on a beautiful morning, which he considers a paradise because he can wake up when he wants, eat when he wants, and enjoy his life like a noble. Elin is having such a good time that he thinks about starting a toast business. He is busy eating delicious food when Jivan comes into the room to tell him that he has just received a message. Ellen's meal immediately turns bitter when he reads the letter and discovers that he has been asked to return to the estate because his brother has just died. With just those simple words, their supposed paradise ended in just 3 days. In grief, he returned to the estate and noticed that everyone reacted to him in a very strange way. This is when Jevin asks him when he became a mastermind who was able to destroy Belen. Finally, Alan realizes that he is in a really crazy simulation. Alan then asks Javon to explain the situation of how he became a mastermind. Javon simply replies that he is the only one who can gain something from the chaos. Javon goes on to say that Leo was killed after they left the compound, which is a perfect alibi for him. Moreover, this ultimately promotes him to the position of being the heir without rivals. And Bon mentions that since Avalon is gone, Alon wouldn't have anyone to cause him problems. With all this together, Ivan says that Alon has become the brain of the county. Ivan also praises himself, saying that he is a master of the sword, and that he is under Ellen's command. Alon is totally confused by all this, which forces him to ask Ivan if he is having fun, since he seems to be dancing. Dancing around. Alan sits and thinks about everything that has happened. Racking his brains, he doesn't think there is any organization strong enough to be able to take down Avalon in just one night. Suddenly, he realizes that Ivan once told him that there is an organization that hunts other organizations. Alan thinks the culprits might have been the Blue Moon. Jevon then tells Alan that, with the information he got from the guild, there is no indication that Blue Moon is involved. Basically, the Blue Moon organization never leaves bodies, but it leaves a mark. The officials of Avalon, on the other hand, were killed with the use of a sword. Alan finally realizes why he was chosen as the mastermind, because he has an assistant who wields a sword. Since the Blue Moon did not appear before the main story, and there are no indications that they are the culprits, Alan begins to wonder. I know who it could be. Later, during her usual meetings, Yusha asks her colleagues if there were any traces of her involvement in what happened. But they assure her that there were none. The only thing they left behind were piles of bodies, and they did everything the way Yusha wanted. Yusha smiles because her plan worked very well. This basically ended with Avalon, the powerful organization that once held the kingdom of Asteria hostage. All it took Yusha and her colleagues was 5 days to ruin Belen. Mouse then tells Yusha that the cleaning is not quite complete. Yusha asks him what he means by this, and he explains that he found more nobles who are connected to Avalon. Apparently, the Duchy of Altia seems to be the culprit most involved in everything. Without thinking twice, Yusha tells the group that it is necessary for them to quietly eliminate the threat. Yusha then asks her friends about the Information Guild, and they assure her that the guild has nothing that links them to the whole annihilation. Basically, all the other guilds share the same opinion as the Information Guild, because they all call it hell created by the Swordmaster. Ryan then asks Yusha if they should keep vigil, and she tells them to do so. Yusha tells them how important it is that their teacher does not find out about everything that is happening. Deus mentions that Leo, who was Ellen's brother, was the one who attacked him first. Yusha then says that they can't justify what they did since they didn't receive an order from Ellen. Yusha reminds them that they are a sword, and that they are not allowed to think for themselves. Yusha says that the Blue Moon only moves by given order, and moreover, she warns them that their teacher knows everything. With this in mind, he urges them to always live according to the standards set by their teacher, and never disappoint him. Deus is surprised that Julia, who is overwhelmingly powerful, is afraid that Alon will find out about her exploits. However, Deus can't argue because everything they are doing is for Alon. A month later, Alon finds himself stuck with various tasks. This is not the kind of life he imagined for himself, but the life that chose him. Due to Leo's death, Alon has earned a lot of resentment. Surprisingly, Leo's death should not happen until 6 years later. Due to the sudden death of the entire family, all the work fell to Ellen. To make matters worse, everyone is working very hard and delivering their projects just on time. Elon recalls that during his father's tenure, everyone was working like bugs. Unbeknownst to him, the servants and workers are working very hard to make sure they stay out of it, on their bad side, and end up in a ditch somewhere. Elon wishes that the servants would just sort things out for themselves without involving him in it. Later, Jivan congratulates Elon on reaching the 2nd level of his magic practice in the space of 2 years. Jivan tells Elon that he possesses an incredible talent, as it usually takes about 4 years of training to reach the 2nd level. To avoid arguing with Ivan, Elon admits that he has talent when it comes to magic. Basically, Elon was putting everything he knew into the magic defense because he was nervous. The technique he's also learning requires a lot of magical control, but Elon doesn't see himself getting good at it. Initially, Elon was excited because he thought that once the plan was over, there would be no more danger. With this, you could self-study without stress. However, with the recent call to security, Elon has realized that his manual is really small. Basically, the manual that one is born with is like the body of an athlete that is fixed from birth. And when it comes to Alan's manual, it's pretty small. He's too small because even his training can't cover him. Alon is thinking about his stressful life when Jevon informs him that an invitation to dance has just arrived. Alan is surprised that he has been invited to a party dance, but he has no choice but to attend. Entering the living room, Alan complains that he is already tired. The party is a regular networking dance between the nobles that takes place in the southern region of the Asteria Kingdom. Alan also thinks about building connections with the dance party, as he will soon be the count. Alan realizes that having a good connection with other nobles could ensure his safety in the future. Alan makes his move, but all the nobles begin to avoid him as if it were some kind of disease. Gibbon comforts him, telling him not to bother, but Alan is not even upset. Alan was already expecting something like this to happen. Alan tells Gibbon that he needs to apologize. Alan walks towards the drinks table while thinking about his move, even though they are avoiding him for being the black sheep. Alan is prepared to solve his current situation with the social skills he claims to have practiced in secret. Lifting a glass of wine, he walks towards a lady, while talking about how nice the drink is. He tells the woman that he would love to take some bottles home, and tries to end the conversation with a smile. But as expected, his smile looks awful. With fear coursing through the lady's body, she tells Alan that she will tell her father to fix it. And before Alan can say anything else, she runs out. Alan finds himself abandoned, while the other house guests start whispering about how Alan must have threatened the innocent lady, forcing her to flee. In fact, they think Alan is worse than his late brothers. Alan tries to delude himself of the reality that the lady is afraid of him, and comes to the conclusion that the lady must be shy. Levin reaches out to comfort Alan and mentions all the sacrifices he made to try and make sure everything turned out okay. He finally realizes that the name Palace is more fearsome than he even thought. Since rumors have claimed that he had his brothers killed, he has automatically become the person no one wants to associate with. Tired of the room, Alan tells Jevon that he needs to get some air. Meanwhile, Alan is being watched by a peculiar red-haired woman. Alan is remembering his terrible life on the balcony when a strange girl appears, asking to talk to Alan. Alan is surprised that someone is talking to him, and when he looks closely, it turns out to be Laura, the third daughter of the ducal house of Altia. Alan is not at all surprised that someone from the house is talking to him. Alan remembers that the Altia family is one of the great villains of the game. They are basically the black sheep of the north. Alan deduces that the one who chose to talk to him is not an ordinary person. However, Alan wonders why he doesn't remember the girl, as he doesn't think he saw her while playing the game. Just then, Loria gets straight to the point, saying, making Alan that she needs his strength, because she will be killed soon. Alan is shocked to hear this, and the girl goes on to say that until that moment she has been under her father's protection, because she is his lover's daughter. However, her father has become ill, and she fears that her sisters will eliminate her. Alan finally realizes that it's about survival, and then he realizes that he doesn't remember the girl, because she died before the main story of the game started. Loria continues to beg Alan to help her, and Alan responds by saying that he is not going to help. Loria goes on to say that she is not asking for his help. Free help. Loria promises Alan half of the dukedom if he can help her. Alan ignores her, saying that he is leaving. Alan admits that Loria is in a difficult position, but at the same time, she will also put herself in danger if he helps her. Even if he wants to help, Alan knows he can't because, unlike the rumor, he's just a guy with no talent. Just as he is about to walk through the door, Alan's consciousness stops him, and he turns around to talk to Noria. He tells her that something good will happen to her, and deep down, he hopes that she really knows someone who can help her. Meanwhile, the Sins watching Elin have noticed that Loria has approached him, and deduce that telling Yusha is the best option before acting. Rin then tells Deus that he may not need to report the situation since Loria is the only Altia who is not affiliated with the bad things they are doing. This, in turn, excludes it from being the target of radon. Deus agrees that this makes things easier because the other Altia will be dealt with. Ryan mentions that Yusha has told them to make sure that all the information flow is cut off, to make sure that the Avalon incident never reaches Elin. Elin is walking down the hallway alone, when suddenly he is approached by the red-haired lady. Elin is initially confused as to whether he is the one being greeted or someone else. Elin nervously responds to greetings, and from the way the girl walks and her aura, Elin can see that she is a gloomy person. Alon tries to remember who he is because he has definitely seen his face in the game. In addition, he deduces that whoever is talking to him is not normal. Alon finally remembers her name, Kalia Zenonia, and approaches her to offer his greetings. Kalia is surprised to see that Alon really knows who she is. Alon tells the lady that he knows her because she is quite a famous person. Apparently, there are 3 great houses in the kingdom of Asteria. The northern house is the Altia house, the eastern house is the Palace house, and in the west are the degenerates of Senonia. It turns out that Kaya is the eldest daughter of Count Senonia. If Palacio is considered a gang, Senonia is a more refined corporate-style syndicate. Although he needs some noble connection to live a peaceful life, Alon fears that he should not get involved with the Senonia. Alon continues the compliment by telling Kalia that she is famous because she is beautiful, and Kalia thanks him for the compliment. Kalia says that she would like to talk more, and Alon agrees, but mentions that there are a lot of eyes watching them. Deep down, Alon just wants the lady to let him go on his way. Kalia smiles, saying that Alon is just as the rumor said, but she lets him know that she would like to see him again. Alon is shocked by this, leaving him wondering what the lady meant by that. Meanwhile, Deus and Ran are still monitoring the situation, and it seems that something more worrying has come up. Deus tells Reina that there is a weird guy who is following Alon. Since there are no direct orders regarding this, Ren suggests that they observe, but move on to elimination if necessary. Later, Alon and Jevon head to a canyon that Alon has reportedly been searching for. Levin is skeptical about the whole thing, and tries to tell Alan that the inside of the canyon is dark, even though they are in broad daylight. Alan, on the other hand, rejoices that he has finally found his goal. Pray that you are in the right place because you could well fall into depression if it turns out to be the wrong one. Upon entering, Alon is relieved to see that it is exactly what he was looking for. Basically, it was easy to find in the game, unlike what just happened to know its location. Apparently, Alon came to the canyon because of a certain labyrinth, the Labyrinth of Whispers. If you can solve the puzzles in 8 chambers, you have a chance to win a valuable artifact as a reward. Since he still remembers the whole tour, he thinks it's time for him to savor the joy of the level 1 routine. Elin is impressed when standing at the entrance of the maze, as it is the first time he sees him in real life. And Bon then mentions that the cannon seems to have been built by hand, which leads him to question how Elin too. He knows the place. Elon casually mentions that he comes here often, and this surprises Yvonne. Realizing that Yvonne is already thinking about it too much, Alon tells her that he is just joking. Upon entering the maze, they encounter several monsters hanging from the ceiling, waiting for them to get the riddle wrong, so they can be crushed. While Yvonne is freaking out, Halon remains calm, and this surprises Yvonne. Elin is only focused on the riddle, while Ivan racks his brains about how he has failed several times in trying to decipher Elin. Jivan thinks deeply about it, and realizes that none of the missions they have performed have been related to each other. From bringing down an evil organization to saving a slave, paying someone's debt, helping a orphan and several others like him. This makes Jevon wonder how Elon knows the maze when Elon doesn't even leave the party. Just then, Elon mentions that he has got the riddle right, but that they need to wait for the giant hand to finish his thing. Although Jevon is curious about Elon, he knows that something good always comes out of every mission they undertake. The door starts to open, leaving Jevon wondering what he's planning. Exactly Ellen again. When the door finally opens, they find countless treasures sitting in the Great Hall. Standing in the distance is a gauntlet with rings. Apparently, Alan's only mission is the black ring on one of his fingers. Jevon is surprised that this is his only goal, because it seems to be totally useless. Alan retrieves the ring and realizes that it is too big for his hand, but takes it anyway. He tells Jevon to drop the treasures he has packed because they would only bring them trouble. As they leave the maze, Alan assures Yvonne that there is nothing dangerous on the way. Alan is grateful for the walk because it made things easier for him. Momentarily, they encounter a small problem. A bunch of stone golems have blocked the way, and Yvonne is already thinking about how she can get Elin out of there. Just then, Elin tells him that he has nothing to worry about because he will take care of the golems. And Bon tries to tell Elin that escaping is his #1 priority, no matter what he's planning. Alan walks towards the golems while lifting the finger holding the ring. Jevon is worried that Alan is going to die because his level 2 magic is useless against golems. Once he is close enough to the golems, Alan uses the ring to activate the restriction instruction. Time stops, and Alan finds himself in an empty dimension where the system tells him he has 2 restrictions he can enact. Alan remembers that in the game, his current position has a selection window. Looking into the abyss, there is a giant face, and Alan believes that the reward for completing the maze is the restriction instruction. As the name implies, it is an absorption-type artifact that imposes restrictions on the user in exchange for power. The voice that just spoke to Alan made it all feel very real. Alan then mentions his first restriction. After reciting the spell, the being asks him what he plans to win, and Alan mentions that he would like to bend the laws of the world a little more. Once you have filed your claim, the system grants you your first restriction. And for your second restriction, you follow the same procedure, and the system asks you what you are looking for with this. Alan simply replies that his application is still as before. The being takes a minute before responding to Alan, and Alan fears he has messed things up. Alan knows that choosing seals and words for the restriction grants the greatest magical attack power. While playing, he mastered all the hand signs and phrases, which means that his request is supposed to be granted. Just then, the being grants his request, and the voice tells him that he is considered very important for having remembered everything related to the Forgotten God. The voice then tells him to carry out the Forgotten God's will, leaving Elon confused. Once the being finishes speaking, the ring on Ellen's hand is absorbed, which is a sign that the restriction worked successfully. Just then, Elon returns to the real world when Yvonne is trying to get him out of the golem's way. However, Elon resorts to his magical power. But even after using all his mana, the lightning sphere he created is still small. Since his own magic power is garbage, he decides to test the power of restrictions by giving it the price it demands.